All right, everyone. Welcome once again to the Faces of Business. I am your host, Damon Pistulka, and I am excited for our guest today because I've got Michelle Page here from Sales Chasers, and we're going to be talking about building an effective sales machine. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you, Damon. Thank you. I'm
What's
happy to be
awesome
here.
to I'm excited to have you here because if there's anything that is critical to a business behind having something to sell, it's the selling of that. So I'm excited to go through some of the things and, looking through your background, you've been helping people develop sales teams, develop sales systems, being both an inside, outside, and just around the topic from all angles in some interesting real world settings. So as we always like to start this off, Michelle, why don't you tell us a bit about your background and how you got into helping people today with your fractional sales efforts?
Absolutely. Well, I actually started selling by phone back when that awful word telemarketing was the term for it.
Yeah.
And yes, I was that person that called you at the dinner hour. And after a few hours of that, I said, okay, business to business is where I want to be. I've been in the selling by phone industry for about 3 decades. So I've seen just about every type of product, every type of methodology, good, bad, and ugly. And
Uh-huh.
um, I've I've learned what works, what doesn't, and if you run into this challenge, there's a lot of ways to overcome it. So when I got into it, it was because I've been selling since I was a kid, and I found that it's something I enjoy. When you're selling something, it's because somebody can benefit from it,
Hmm.
and I enjoy that.
Very cool. So what's the most interesting thing you ever sold?
Oh wow. Um,
Or you enjoyed selling the most?
um, enjoyed selling. You know, I've enjoyed almost all of them. I would say the one that I probably enjoyed the most was one of my longest customers, which was court furniture rental,
Hmm.
and it was fun because um, we spread out that engagement. It was probably 6 years, and we started with one office here in Atlanta. And you think, okay, it's furniture rental. How exciting can that be? Well, every time you hear why companies use it, and then we started bringing in higher education and military and government and all these different applications about how it is so useful. You learn, and then you spread over to a bunch of different geographic markets and what's pertinent to that market. It was fun, and the teams that I worked with was fun, and I just really enjoyed that experience.
Very cool. Very cool. And then what do you think was the hardest thing you ever had to try to sell?
I'm going to give you two examples, and they were both technology.
Okay.
The first one, I started that job in 1991, 92. Email was new at that point,
Yeah.
just to kind of position it. And we were selling software systems on premise for manufacturing companies.
Wow.
They started out at like $250,000, and
Yeah.
we were doing lead generation. So I was completely out of my element on the industry, on software, and it taught me how to learn an industry and how to learn how to prospect. And that was the first situation where we were teamed as business development with an AE, territory to territory. So it was a great learning experience, and I learned how to learn fast.
Yes.
The other frustrating one was also technology. And this was a founder who knew his product. It was a software company. He knew his product, but he didn't know who his ideal client was.
Mm-hmm.
He knew who the person was as far as the psychography, but he didn't know what type of industry or how they were going to use it. He didn't have it narrowed down into use cases. So me building out a sales strategy and messaging was just
Yeah.
completely challenging.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wow. I asked those two questions, and we have tons to talk about just in those two or three questions there. So let's back up. Let's back up a little bit because I there's a wealth of conversation points there.
Uh-huh.
So when we're talking about building an effective sales machine, something that's going
Mhm.
to be able to, you know, expand your customer base and continue to build your sales over time, what are your key, I guess, people pieces in that? We've got sales and business development, marketing. We've got inside account or customer service people. What are the, if you just said, we really see in most of the kind of business I work with, we have to have bump, 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 bump to really keep the things rolling like we want.
Well, that is going to vary widely depending on a lot of things. The life cycle of the company,
Mm-hmm.
the type of product or service, who you're selling to. If there's a big customer service element, if you're doing a lot of repeat business, a lot of repeat orders, if it's more transactional consultative selling, if it's an ARR model, and of course with life cycle, if you've got one or two SDRs, or if you've got 25.
Yeah.
So the first thing you need to look at is where are you? So current state, what is your desired state? And I'm not talking
Uh,
about 25 years from now.
yeah.
If you've got an aggressive revenue goal for the next 12 months or next 24 months, okay, that's your desired state. Let's quantify that. Okay, what's the gap and what's the bridge to get there? So we need to build that roadmap. Then we can identify what our sales strategy is. Then we've got to look at what do you have in place. If you have two AEs, two closers, they're probably not prospecting as much as they could, because if you hired a good closer, they don't like to prospect.
Mm-hmm.
that's that's kind of a known fact for the majority. You either have the drive and the personality to hunt, or the drive and the personality to close. Full cycle sales does work in some situations. What I have seen perform best has been defined roles and responsibilities. You can build better metrics, you can manage better, you can coach better, and you can get better performance. So, what does your makeup look like? So, what is the best fit to
Yeah.
get the best results?
So you said a couple things in here, and I'd like to expand on this a little bit
Yeah.
because some people look at, they think they hired a salesperson and all their problems are going to go away. But you brought up, I think, a very um, important point about hunters and closers.
Mhm.
And when I'm sitting here with a business and I've got a plethora of people I know who I have to contact, is that really a time to go, okay, I can just hire a closer and I can close these? Or do we still need a hunter at the beginning of the process? It's going to talk to, 100 of these clients a day or however many a week or whatever the right number is. And then if they're interested, we pass them on to the closer to talk about, how they would talk about to actually get to a sale. Because full cycle sales, I think is tough in a lot of
Yeah.
situations, like you said.
Well, Damon, I'm going to make a lot of responses as, well, it depends.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've got this list. Are they network connections, past customers, past prospects that you talked to 3 years ago, and maybe
Mm,
they've forgotten who you are? Did they sign up on your website and maybe they forgot they signed up? They signed up for a webinar and never attended. So you've got to figure out, okay, what grade would you give this list?
yeah.
If it is a warm list of people that at one time were qualified MQLs or SQLs, so
Mhm.
marketing qualified or sales qualified, you could give that to an AE, a closer. If you don't know the status of that list, there could be people on there that have left the company.
Yeah.
Maybe they've gone to a new company and you want to research where they went. Or maybe you're talking to a lower level employee that's on your list that maybe they are an influencer, maybe they're just kind of ancillary to a decision making team, and you really want to go a level up. Don't have your AE do that. Have either your BDR or perhaps a data person do that. So
Okay.
you want to get the biggest bang for your buck for whatever role is doing a job.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Do you see because I know in some of the smaller companies that we work with, I see where they might have someone that's more like a business development person, and they're actually using some of their sales slash operational people to close. I see this in oil and gas. How do you think is that effect? Have you seen that done effectively, or is it really you should separate that sales from the operational aspect?
The operational or technical side can add a lot of value when they accompany the sales process. So think about a sales engineer. A lot of salespeople, they're salespeople because they know sales.
Hmm.
Those sales skills are transferable to a lot of different industries. They may not be intimately familiar with your industry, but they know sales. They can learn an industry. Now, if you have someone that is a software engineer, they know software. They may not know sales.
Yeah.
So you can learn an industry much easier than you can learn sales.
There we
So
go.
stay in your lane, call in the resources that you need, but stay in your lane. That's why a lot of founder-led sales organizations struggle.
Hmm.
The founder knows their product or service. They can sell it to somebody who wants or needs it, but finding those opportunities, it's not their core competency.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you're coming into companies and they're saying, "Hey, our sales just aren't doing what we normally need," and I know it depends, but when we look at it, is it usually when we're talking about common problems, is it because they don't have a good business development aspect and they're not really refreshing and understanding and collecting and not collecting is not a good word, but really getting introduced to more potential customers, or is it typically that they can't, you know, explain the product or service right and get through the sales process?
That is something that you would need to do an assessment first. So
Yeah.
when I start working with a company, a lot of times I'll be asked to come in and coach or train.
Hmm.
Um, I can absolutely do that. I enjoy it. I actually get a lot of personal satisfaction out of that part of what I do. But if you're coaching or training someone who doesn't know what job they're supposed to do or don't know how to do their job, you're a little bit ahead of yourself.
Yeah.
So does that person have the right resources available to them? Do they have the right knowledge available to them? So peel it back a little bit. So I always look at the foundation.
Yeah.
Are they calling the right people? Are they saying the right messaging? If, in my view, there are 3 M's to successful sales communications. There is, first of all, the market. Are you talking to the right people? That goes to your ICP and the personas within that ICP. The second one is the messaging. 2023 is all about personalization. If your message is not relevant to the company and the person that you're communicating with, it's going to fall short. You need to personalize. You need to be relevant. The third is the medium. You're not going to communicate the same way over the phone as you would by email or even a voicemail. So all of that has to be right. So when you're coaching someone, if they don't have a good understanding of all that, coaching them on their delivery on the phone, if they're saying the wrong message to the wrong person, is not going to be helpful.
Yeah.
So I always advise a client or a potential client, go back to the basics. You wouldn't build a house on quicksand. Look at your foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Who is your ICP? Now, if you're a car dealer, you may say, well, anyone that has a license and wants or needs a car. Okay, well, that's your addressable market. But what if you're a Lamborghini dealer? Is that your ideal client profile? No. So get specific.
So do you see, let's talk about the ideal customer profile or persona. Do you see companies spending enough time on that? Or is it typically they fall short?
Typically, they do fall short. They oftentimes they'll either look at their client base and say, this is a good client, we should get more like them. Or they'll look at their product or service features or benefits and say, okay, this company could use that. So that might be a good client. It would be applicable to them, but is it their ideal client?
Mm.
So Michelle has her own definition of
Oh,
an
let's
ICP.
hear it.
So in Michelle's world, an ideal client profile would be a company that their need is so perfectly filled by the service or product that you provide as an organization that they are going to minimize your sales cycle.
Wow.
They are going to reduce the expense it is for you to sell to them, service and support them, maintain any part of that relationship. And it's also going to have an opportunity for upsells, cross sells, ARR renewals, that sort of thing. That's all going to lead to a long-term relationship rather than transactional, where they evaluate based on price every year.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be so pleased they'll become a raving fan and lead to more referrals. So can they use your product, or are they going to fit that description?
Yeah, it's a lot of there's a big span between those two.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that's the only ones you want to market to, but you want to make sure that that is a big chunk of who
Mm-hmm.
is in your prospecting list.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, in some of these, I mean, some companies, I mean, especially if you get into manufacturing or other B2B kind of companies, I mean, they're not trying to find 10,000 customers. Some are trying to find 10 or 100. And when you look at that, and obviously it's much different than if I'm trying to find 1,000, but
Right.
this becomes more and more important, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially the smaller your sales team. You want to be very pinpointed in where you spend your time, because you know the saying, time is money.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have limited resources to invest in your success, make it a wise investment.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. So we've had lots of things changing in sales. Some sales in the past few years. What are some of the things that you see that people, either the leaders are getting on board with, or people that aren't, need to get on board with?
That's a great question. Uh, I'm a specialist in the building in order to scale. So in order to have a repeatable process for future success and to be able to kind of predict that success, you need to know that you're building a strong foundation. So I always go back to, okay, let's not go get 15 sales enablement platforms when you have bad data. So I always go back to there's really two tools that you need, and they're so often overlooked. So the data sources that are available today, a lot of companies will go out and get 2 or 3 data sources and say, okay, SDRs, BDRs, go out and prospect. These are all the resources you have available. So a lot of SDRs or BDRs will go out there and kind of hunt and peck, and spend 15, 20 minutes researching, okay, I'm going to call this one. So the first thing I think an organization needs to do is they need to identify the best fit dynamic data source that works for their company. So best fit means that it has, number one, plenty of appropriate contacts for what they're looking for. Number two is accuracy of data. If they only have 70% accuracy, you're still wasting your money. And don't let them tell you what their accuracy is. Talk to other users.
There you go.
And then best fit is also make an appropriate investment. Going back to the car analogy, if you just got your driver's license, don't buy a Rolls Royce. Get something that's going to get you through the next year, and then you can upgrade that plan, or you can go to a bigger, better plan. So that data source is so important. The second one is a CRM. You've got to be able to track everything. And again, don't go get the biggest, because if it's not customized to your needs, if it's not easy for your team to use, to record all the pertinent data, not just that you need to sell to each customer, but also to capture for future marketing campaigns, to analyze prospect and soon to be client characteristics and performance demographics. You need to plan that CRM, you need to customize it. If you have those two items in place, there's no need to go put a bunch of tools out there that your team may not need and may not use. So those are the two things that I think are often overlooked. They go back to the beginning of selling by phone, but they need to be done well. They really do.
Yeah. So a good dynamic data source that's right for you, and then a CRM that's right for you.
But customized, it's got to have the fields that you need. It's got to. And you've got to make sure your team is using it. Garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of that in CRMs. Is you'll go into a company and you go, okay, because we're helping them evaluate growth and what they really need to be doing to get to their value goals, and you look at it and you go, okay, show us your CRM and see how you guys you're using it, and it's like there's really nothing in there. Or there's stuff in there, but that you go, okay, this is a potential customer. Is this a customer? Show me all the interactions you had for them, and there no interactions, or
If
they're
it's
limited.
if it's not in the CRM, it didn't happen.
Yeah,
that's my mantra.
there you go.
I read a report. Oh gosh, it's been several months, and I can't recall the source. But business leaders that were polled, something like 75 or 80% said that they rely on the data in their CRM to make strategy decisions. And then they were asked, what percentage of you have confidence in the data in your CRM? And it was something like 30%.
Yeah. Well, you look at your CRM and it should be telling you what your pipeline looks like. There's a lot of things. I mean, and when you see it done right, especially if you got something where I've seen in my experience with the longer lead time kind of things where you're going, okay, or a longer sales process, not a longer lead time, but a longer sales
Mhm.
process where we've got a lot of things. We're talking about a project that might happen a year from now, and how does it progress up to it, and then how does the quote process working? Do we get the quote to the customer and decision process? There's all these steps in there, and if you're measuring what you have at each step and it's not accurate, you got no idea what's in your pipeline.
Right. Well,
And
there should, in the ideal situation, because of course we do live in an ideal world, the data in the CRM should be substantial enough and accurate enough. So when that sales leader has their one-on-one with that individual contributor, whether it's a BDR to a senior AE, they should be able, the leader should be able to look at that report and have enough information for activity, results, and forecast that one-on-one is not about what are you doing and what does the future look like. It should be about coaching, training,
ah,
giving support. That's what a sales leader should be doing in those one-on-ones.
that's a great point. You really think about that, and if the data is already there, everything's working, we're entering it, or it's automatically, however the data has to get in there, that sales manager, that sales leader can sit down with that person and go, okay, Damon, you looks like you made 100 calls and we got X amount of them turned into what we wanted, and that's great. Or how can we help to do this? What are you
Yes,
seeing? And you get right past how many did you make, what were the results, and you're right into how are we going to improve the results.
exactly. Oh, you
Yeah,
just made me smile.
there we go, there we go. Well, I mean, it's so incredibly interesting for me. I mean, I started at I'm not a salesperson, but I started doing corporate sales as part of my job years and years and years and years ago. And the changes in the process. I mean, because we weren't talking about CRMs 25 years ago.
Right.
You may have had you may have had a spreadsheet with that. You may have been, and most of it, when you look at, you're talking about data, dynamic data sources. I mean, sometimes we were looking, I forget what they were called, some big books to try to find different companies and that kind of thing. But it's incredible now when you
Mhm.
see these people that really, and it's people, because I companies are just people, but these where they've really put the right things together, so they're harnessing a data source, like you said, that
Mhm.
gives them plenty of fresh people or the right people to be able to be reaching out to. They know who they should target. First of all, I come
Right.
back to your definition of ICP is really cool, especially when you're looking for multi-million dollar customers. That's a good way to do it. And then you see how this works, right? Okay, if we look across the US or wherever we're selling, the globe when we're selling, and then track that through the CRM and see how that comes from identification of someone to initial outreach to, yes, they, whatever the process is to get them to the point of, yes, we're talking to them about something, and then they turn into a customer. That's really cool. It's really cool how it works now.
Yeah, you can pivot your strategy based on that information. You can go deeper in a successful path. You
Mm-hmm.
can use that as training materials for up and coming uh, sales reps in whatever role they may be. You may find that you need to change your infrastructure based on that data, add roles, combine roles. There's so much information you can get. And again, it's because you did two things well. You've got the right data, you tracked it, enhanced it with the information you uncovered, you analyzed it and learned from it. And the big difference between a dynamic data source and purchasing a list, even if it's a targeted list of members of a specific organization. The moment you buy that list, it's out of date.
Mm-hmm.
It's out of date. If you get a dynamic list, they're refreshed regularly. New information is added when people change organizations, change titles, companies are acquired and they have a new email. That's updated.
Mm-hmm.
A purchased stagnant list is out of date as soon as you receive it.
Yeah. Yep. And that's a great point, because there's so much more that's needed now than just simple contact information too.
Right.
Like you said, with the need for personalization. Let's move into that a little bit, because you talked about 2023 is a year of personalized outreach. Or I believe I'm covering that right, or recounting
Yes.
that correctly. What does that mean for sales organizations, salespeople throughout the process?
I'll give you an example with a current client.
Yeah.
We are reaching out to an industry where we're targeting strictly C-level.
Mm-hmm.
So the bucket of owners, founders, presidents, CEO, and then there's the operations bucket of COOs, VPs of ops, CFOs, and there may be a VP of administration, but that's kind of like lower level targets. So what is a COO concerned with? What are his or her pains? What are the gains that he or she want to achieve? They may be similar to what the CFO wants to achieve, but they're not the same. They're not the same. Same with the COO, founder, owner, president. They don't have specifically the same operational goals. They may be higher level. You need to speak to each persona with what he or she wants to or needs to hear. You need to speak about relevant things that are happening in the industry, to their customers, to their suppliers, and perhaps to them.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's a great example too, because your CFO is going to have like you said, their concerns, their challenges around whatever you're trying to introduce them to, sell them. It is really has to come from their viewpoint.
Absolutely. Why do they care? As they say, with them, what's in it for me?
Yeah.
So in building the business development organization for this client, we started off with, okay, here's our ICP. Who are the key personas within that? What are their pains, their gains, their key objectives? And within that, each of the personas, they may have 3 different categories of pains or gains. Okay, so what specifically within the financial pain? What 3 items? Okay, cost control, increasing profits, better data. Okay, what specifically is it about cost control? Okay, well, today's environment, materials costs and freight costs are unpredictable. Okay, why is that a pain? Well, we can't set pricing because if we set a pricing today for something we're going to produce in the future, we have no idea if we're going to be able to maintain profitability. Okay, there's your value proposition 1. So your first cadence is going to speak to that value prop. They're going to hear what they want or need to hear multiple times, phone, email, voicemail, and then they're going to say, oh yeah, this makes sense. They know what they're talking about. It's not going to be something, the spray and pray, they'll say, or smile and nod. You've got to have a targeted plan for your messaging. So we have a grid. It's a messaging matrix of the cadence, the value props, personas, all of that.
Hmm. Very, very cool. Very cool. It's good. You defined it well. Explained that
Thank
well.
you.
Um, so lots of people talk about emails dead, phones dead, whatever. You hear, you just insert this for a way to introduce yourself or sell products. What do you really see in the real world? Are they all still effective? It's just different for different industries and different kind of environments because of the personalization that we need to do, or what's really going on there?
It's not a matter of the method being dead, it is poor execution.
Okay.
Let me give you an example. I just posted on LinkedIn about this today. A new trend in emailing, and I just received a series of these. Um, you'll receive an email from a company. They will have a call to action. Let's set up a demo. The email signature only has their name and the company name. There's no phone number, there's no link, there's nothing. The next email will come, it could be hours later, from a second person at that company. Oh, I hear you're talking to Susie. She said that we should connect. So, what's a good time to talk to you? No way of getting in touch with the second person. And then you get another email from the first person. If you hit reply, the email bounces. How do you get in touch with this person?
Yeah.
Why are you spending your marketing dollars? And by the way, they're offering a service to increase business development.
Yeah.
Do you know what my
Yeah.
business
Yeah.
does?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's poor execution. It is absolutely poor
Poor
execution.
execution.
Yeah.
Well, it makes a lot of sense, the poor execution, because I think depending on your ICP,
Mhm.
you should know, are these phone people, are these email people, are these TikTok people?
Mhm.
And we got someone that came on and said, I had one of these last week. All right, Keenan, I'm happy that you had one last week, because
I've
like
had like 20.
yeah, like Michelle, I have a whole junk folder that fills up every day that I try to keep clean, because I get good stuff in there once in a while
Yeah.
too, and I feel bad looking at it. But they are literally, as you said, it's and the one that gets me in email is the second, third, whatever it is, email that comes to you, because I'm obviously not interested after the first or the second that comes to me that says something, and it has no subject line, the body of the email, nothing tells you why they want to talk to you. It's how do you really? I was wondering if you had any thoughts about the email I sent previously. Well, I didn't read the first one, so in order for me to find that, all they would have had is a couple words in there about blah blah blah, you know, rather than just going like that, because there's no chance. I mean, how can that be effective? I think to myself, I like to get these things right. I like to get these things because you understand what's good and what's bad. I
Yeah.
mean, I see when you talk about email marketing, I think there's some witty ones that you get that I think are worthwhile, just to see how you can make these things fun. I mean, you can sell a lot of different things, and if you're personable, if you understand who you're selling to, you can do a good job with it.
Yeah.
Um, and I think, and I'm asking you the question now: is that kind of personalization and really knowing your ICP well enough to go, hey, I'm selling to the girl that just went to the Barbie show with all of her friends. That's the 28-year-old girl that just went to the That's my daughter. Went to the Barbie show with all her friends last weekend. And do I use those terms and things like that when I'm doing that? Is that really a good strategy when you see these kind of things? Is really understanding your client to that point
Yeah.
to be able to integrate into your sales process?
Yeah. The psychographics of a prospect are important. Um, Emails in particular, have dramatically changed over the past even few years. Um, the style right now is very short. Um, I don't want to use the word casual, but it's not that buttoned up, spew of information about who we are, what we do. It's usually asking questions. They're much shorter, and it's a little bit. Some of them are kind of cheeky. So you're not going to send the same email style to the CEO of Hewlett Packard as you are to the CEO of Apple.
Mm-hmm.
Different culture. And you're not going to send the same email to the CEO of a $50 million company.
Mm-hmm.
It, it's different. You've got a phrase that is very popular right now that is, I think, overused. You've got to meet them where they are.
Mm-hmm.
So if
Yeah.
you're not relatable to them, they're not going to want to interact with you.
So in years gone by, these email automation things were used a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see them being used effectively now, or is it that this personalization has gotten to a point that where you really, if you're selling an item that's got some girth to it, not a product sale, it's going to be going. Do you think that the business development process really needs to be more individualized than an email automation can offer, or is there kind of a steps into it and then the super personalized works, or what do you see people effectively doing?
The automation tool, if it's sophisticated enough, you can build in a number of sequences, a number of cadences, and they're all tied to a specific group in your CRM. So if you name a group SMB tech female led or
Uh-huh.
something like
Yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah.
you can speak to them in this tone. If you
Okay.
do manufacturing firms under 10 million in rural America, you can speak to them in that tone. So if you can
Good point.
segment to the best of your knowledge how your message might be received, but that's a lot of programming, that's a lot of creative. Um, you would need to have a strong, talented business development infrastructure to be able to do that.
Yeah, yeah. So in some cases, it might be you might still be able to use it, but it really does, because you talk about personalization, and
Mm-hmm.
I think about it, and and we're not talking about selling a $29.99 product or something like that,
Right.
but if I'm selling something that's tens of thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars, I mean it almost seems to me like there needs to be in the business development process, there really needs to be a familiarization with who I'm talking to speak to them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. And a lot of those dynamic online um, data sources, there's a tremendous amount of information about the company.
Mm-hmm.
There, if you use LinkedIn uh, just to find out about the person, you can be more
Yeah.
personable with them. Now, I wouldn't start an email saying, "Oh, I'm from Ohio State or from Columbus, Ohio. Oh, I see you're a Buckeye too. Oh, how about those?
Yeah.
How about that game? I don't be a stalker.
Yeah.
People don't like that. But you can understand kind of where. Okay, so this is a Midwesterner. They're they're probably not that fast paced as if they were from the Northeast.
Yeah.
You can get a little bit of feel for them. The data sources I'm speaking of, there's a lot of information in there. There's intent buying, there's current tech stack information. So you could say, okay, this says you use QuickBooks. If you happen to be a QuickBooks user,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I know you are, many of our QuickBook users have said or have found. So
That's a good point.
yeah.
That's a good point. It just seems like it to me. The reason why I ask questions around this, and I know I'm kind of wandering around it, but it seems like the being personal is hard in business development. It's hard. It's a lot of work to, just say if I wanted to prospect 20 customers a day, if I was a business development person, and we're selling something of significance, and I don't mean that. I mean dollar wise. It's significant
Yes.
dollars. Um, that that's a tall order for somebody to do.
Well, it used to be the common number would be 80 to 100 dials a day.
Yeah.
People would smile and dial. Give me a name, company, phone number. We're good. Today, that's not going to cut it. It's just not. So what I found to be much more cost effective is have someone spend some time on the data. So before you just load something into the CRM, pull the right list, clean it, take out anything that somehow got in that list that doesn't belong. So if you pulled on the state of Texas because you're calling Texas and someone from Vermont snuck in there, take it out. Don't even let it get into your CRM.
Yeah.
If you're targeting finance people and a plant manager got in there, take it out. Why would you have your BDR call them, or why would you put it upon your BDR to make that decision if you can clean it first?
Yeah.
If somebody doesn't have a phone number, pull it out. If email is critical to your strategy, pull it out. You can research it later. You can enhance it later. Pull it out. When you load it into that CRM, your sales rep should have accurate, to the best of your ability, actionable accounts to call. And they should be able to average, depending on the CRM, anywhere between 5 and 15 calls an hour. And make all the notes, track it, update the lead status. 5 would be on the low end. It's probably going to be more like 8 to 12.
So, but what you're saying, and this is relevant in some of the people we work with, is really take the time getting that data right, so your BDRs are not wasting their time hunting down emails. They're not wasting their time trying to find a phone number or fill in some information that they don't have. Just give them the leads or potential people that they got all the data. They can do what they need to do. So they're going through their process rather than stopping and, I need to find this. I don't have it now. And going through that way. Okay.
Invest in one person creating clean data for 4 sellers rather than having 4 people waste. And then the garbage does not go into your CRM so somebody a year from now finds it and says, oh, this person hasn't been called.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Wow, Michelle, it's awesome talking to you about this. I mean, I could get into the details because you're so good at this. If people want to talk, and because we're overtime. I just looked up. My goodness, we're overtime. Yeah. No, it's me because I think that it's so challenging right now. I think it's challenging for a lot of people because we don't want to be called by people that are calling us with irrelevant things that we really don't want to. And then on the other side of this, there are people that are trying to call us that we probably would want to talk to. And it's interesting exploring it and really beginning to understand how can companies be more relevant. They don't want to waste their time calling me about something or emailing me about something that I don't want. They only want to, if I'm a good potential customer. So thank you.
Absolutely.
So Michelle Page from Sales Chasers, what is the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, the simplest way to get my contact information, if you go to saleschasers.com, my
Yep.
email and phone number are both on there.
Awesome.
You can also find me on LinkedIn. My profile is under Michelle L. Conkle Page because I had a whole career before I got married.
There you
And a
go.
lot of people know me by my maiden name, Conkle,
All
Conkle
right.
Page.
All right. Well, Michelle, thanks so much for being here. I want to thank the people that were listening. Thank the people that commented today, Keenan and Mia. Thanks so much for being here today. And we will be back again with another awesome person talking about things on the faces of business. Hang out for a moment, Michelle, and we'll wrap up after we go.